The citizens of Kentucky deserve an honest and transparent government. All government officials must be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars that fund our state government. The hardworking men and women who send their tax dollars to Frankfort expect and deserve nothing less than this. As governor of this state, I have carefully and thoughtfully hired public servants who are competent and who are committed to the Commonwealth. Just as important, we have sought at every turn men and women of high character to serve their fellow Kentuckians. In the first 4 months of my administration, my staff has uncovered evidence that officials in the prior administration have failed to meet these high standards that both the law and the people of Kentucky demand from state government officials. We are here today to shed light on some, and I unfortunately stress the fact that this is only some of the questionable activities that our administration has uncovered since taking office 4 months ago. Even more recently, we have learned through a U.S. Department of Justice press conference and media reports that the pay-to-play method of conducting government was alive and well at the very highest levels of the past administration. This method of government must stop. It will not be tolerated in any way, shape, or form in our administration. In fact, it did stop the day that I took office. These discoveries, some of which I will share with you in a moment, raise questions that must be answered in an open and transparent way. Only then will the citizens of the Commonwealth begin to have confidence in their government. There must be a shift in the culture and in the way business is done in Frankfort. If we are to move on from the greedy and often corrupt practices of the past. Let's be very, very clear. Corruption and pay-to-play, or pay-to-stay, as the case might be, will not be tolerated by this administration. Upon concluding my remarks, I will announce how we as a state, as Kentucky, are taking the initiative to move the Commonwealth forward into a new day, a fresh start. You've heard us say this. It is important that we offer nothing less to the people of Kentucky. This will be a new day, one in which the public has confidence and can be proud of the very people who serve them here in Frankfort. The first area I want to touch on is political contributions by state employees. Perhaps as disturbing as anything we've uncovered thus far is the potential coercion of state employees by political contributions, by high-level officials of the last administration. The Tim Longmire federal criminal investigation, reveals that apparently ill-gotten gains were directed to Attorney General Beshear's 2015 campaign and to other Democratic candidates and to the Democrat Party. But what hasn't been publicized is the apparent coercion of employees at the Personnel Cabinet while Longmire was secretary there. Longmire helped to found what was called the Capital Club, which appears to have solicited contributions from scores and scores of donors to Democratic causes and candidates, including raising money from state employees in the Frankfort area, all while he was a top Beshear administration official. Public records also show that state employees contributed at least $140,000 to the Beshear for Attorney General campaign in 2014 and 2015. We have learned from many rank-and-file employees of closed-door demands by high-level Beshear administration officials that they make contributions to Democratic candidates in the last election, including the party's candidates for governor and for attorney general. Employees have stepped forward on numerous occasions and of their own volition, independent of one another, time and time again in recent months, and have explained how they were essentially coerced and that they complied out of fear of loss of their jobs or other retribution. This investigation is preliminary, but we've learned enough to have significant concerns. This sort of thing is not only wrong, but if in fact it is true, it is illegal. It warrants thorough investigation and exposure in any cabinet where it may have occurred, and punishment where that is warranted. These practices will not be tolerated at all in this administration. Records also reveal that Tim Longmire and his family made contributions to Beshear for Attorney General 2015 campaign of $8,000 and substantial sums to other Democrat Party causes. His alleged co-conspirator, MC Squared, or its principals, appears to have contributed as much as $15,500, according to reports. While our investigation isn't continuing, we've seen enough at this point to know that this is a serious problem. I am asking Attorney General Andy Beshear to return these thousands and thousands of dollars of questionable contributions if he has not already done so. Return of these contributions by the Beshear campaign will go a long way toward showing the people of Kentucky that it is not business as usual in this new Beshear administration in the Attorney General's office. Attorney General Beshear's refusal to return these contributions will say exactly the opposite. To the thousands of public employees who work in state government, I thank you for your service. I thank you for your contributions to the people of Kentucky and to the betterment of the Commonwealth. All that I ask of you is that you do your very best for Kentucky and that you take pride in your work. Your job does not require a political contribution from this administration or at any time in the future. Your job does not require a political contribution. I want to talk about the SAS Institute. During the transition period before I took the office of governor, I wrote a letter to then Governor Beshear requesting that his administration provide our team with a copy of all contracts over $1 million that they anticipated would be executed between the time I was elected and the time I took office. Governor Beshear refused to do so. On his last day in office, the Beshear administration awarded a $3 million no-bid contract for fraud detection services, ironically, to SAS Institute of North Carolina, a company that retained the husband of Beshear's Secretary of the Cabinet as a consultant and employed a former governor's office official as their lobbyist. Rather than put the contract out for bid, this large no-bid contract was extended on the final day of the Beshear administration, December 7th, 2015, even though the contract itself that existed was not set to expire until the end of that year. Furthermore, there is clear evidence that the initial SAS contract was improperly expanded to cover additional state agencies without a competitive bid. In both cases, the no-bid contracts involved the politically appointed executive director of purchasing in the finance cabinet. No-bid contracts, and I want to make sure this is clearly understood, not only for this administration, but the purpose of these within government, state government specifically. No-bid contracts should be used only when absolutely necessary, and each and every one should warrant close scrutiny. The awarding of a no-bid contract benefiting the husband of the former Secretary of the Cabinet deserves such scrutiny. I want to talk about the Medicaid IT system. The prior administration issued an RFP for an upgrade of the IT system that is the backbone for Medicaid. It is an enterprise management system requiring the investment of hundreds and hundreds of millions of state and federal dollars. Several Fortune 500 IT consulting firms responded to the RFP. After 8 months, this procurement was abruptly canceled, presumably after a bidder complained about its treatment during oral presentations. The bid was reissued, and in November of 2015, the Bashir administration was preparing to award the contract to the firm whose complaints apparently led to the cancellation of the initial solicitation. There are numerous questions about the propriety of this procurement process. First, the bidder that complained about its treatment was about to lose the initial bid and knew it. Second, management of the second bid was taken away from the Career Merit System procurement officer who handled the first solicitation and was then put into the hands of a non-merit political appointee, the executive director of purchasing in the finance cabinet, the same person responsible for the no-bid SAS contracts mentioned a moment ago. Third, the firm positioned to secure the award following the issuance of the second solicitation had partnered just recently with a firm owned by the husband of former Governor Bashir's Secretary of the Cabinet. Yes, the very same person who consulted for SAS as their lobbyist when it received its no-bid contracts. After complaints resulting in the cancellation of the first solicitation, a losing vendor suddenly receives the highest score following the rebid conducted by a political appointee. This is a convoluted mess, and it doesn't pass the political smell test by any stretch. Thankfully, time ran out on the prior administration. Shortly after uncovering these questionable decisions and relationships, our administration quickly acted to cancel the second bid. We are now moving forward on two fronts, and I should add that was a bid for north of $200 million. This is not insignificant what we're talking about. We are now moving forward on two fronts. We're investigating the potential improprieties of previous bids and preparing a new bid that will be fair to all potential respondents. I want to touch briefly on state workers' compensation. Two major potential irregularities within the workers' compensation branch of the state personnel cabinet have also come to light. One involves the claims administrative process for volunteer firefighters. In particular, it appears that former officials in the personnel cabinet deviated from routine claims handling practice to effectuate potentially unjustified awards of lump sum death benefits, medical benefits, and indemnity benefits to volunteer firefighters. This may have cost millions of dollars over a number of years, and we are investigating. The second irregularity involves certain directives apparently requiring third-party administrators hired to administer workers' comp claims against the state to assign the legal handling of all claims to certain specified hand-picked attorneys, rather than proceeding in a fair bidding process. Again, to reiterate, it would appear that they have been assigning the legal handling of these claims to certain specified hand-picked attorneys rather than proceeding in a fair bidding process. This is yet another example of the state procurement system being abused. This investigation is continuing. In fact, Secretary Tom Stevens of the Personnel Cabinet has recently formally requested that the Finance and Administration Cabinet conduct an investigation into these potential irregularities with an emphasis on auditing all of the claims and all of the billing practices over an extended period of time and ensuring compliance with competitive bidding requirements. This will be done. In light of these areas of serious concern, and still others that are not able to be discussed publicly at this time, I am asking that Secretary of the Finance and Administration Cabinet, Colonel Bill Landrum, using the extensive investigative powers given to him in KRS Chapter 45, to prepare and issue an RFP for a thorough, in-depth investigation, and to report by an attorney or a law firm with experience in investigating activities and contracts like I have outlined. I want to touch briefly as a sidebar on the qualifications of Colonel Landrum. He's known to a number of you, but perhaps not to the degree that he should be. Colonel Bill Landrum is a retired active duty officer, spent his career at the highest levels of finance in the U.S. Army. He was the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Financial Operations worldwide. He was the commander of the U.S. Army Finance Command. He is a man in whom I have incredible confidence. His expertise, his track record, his service to this country is beyond reproach, qualifies him like no one else to follow through on the authorization that has been given him by KRS Chapter 45. Once selected, the firm or individual chosen will work closely with Secretary Landrum and his staff, including the Cabinet's new Inspector General, whose appointment will be announced in the coming days, to make findings and to issue a report. Under KRS Chapter 45, such investigation will include the ability to subpoena witnesses and records, and may be necessary to accomplish these investigative goals. A thorough, independent investigation like this can expose and cast light upon prior unsavory and perhaps illegal practices. But it can also provide the public with the desired degree of confidence in a fair and transparent government that was so glaringly absent in the prior administration. I understand that the FBI may also be looking into matters related to these issues, but the FBI is investigating potential violations of federal law. The people of Kentucky also deserve to know exactly whether or not there have been any violations of Kentucky law. When I campaigned for governor, I committed to running the kind of open, transparent, and honest government that has not always existed in Frankfort. I have the highest confidence in the caliber and integrity of Secretary Landrum. He will clean up the mess, and he will get Frankfort's finances and administrative operations running in a way that will restore confidence in government business. Any sign of corruption will be exposed and will be eliminated. The people of Kentucky elected us to be good stewards and to be public servants, not only to use their hard-earned, and not, I should say, to use their hard-earned dollars for political or personal gain. This is our commitment. At this time, again, I will conclude my remarks without taking questions, but please have absolute confidence that as information arises and as this proceeds, as we announce the selection of the Inspector General and of the entity with whom we will work in this process, that information will be made available to you. This process will be open and transparent to the absolute degree allowed by law, but we will get to the bottom of the mess and we will clean it up. Thank you.